Voting? Not yet. No, great. Okay, wonderful. So it is my great pleasure to greet everybody who made it here tonight. And just very quickly, my name is Nadja, or Nadjeschda Taranczewski. I'm the founder of ConsciousU. We create blended learning programs to initiate collective and individual transformation in organizations mainly. And I have written a program with Peter about his money work. And I will now turn over to Peter, who has been my mentor and friend for, I think, 18 years now or something. It's been one of the most joyful relationships in my life. And Peter is, now officially in the old wise man stage. I think that's safe to say. So Peter, do you want to say a couple words about yourself and your work, maybe just, really in a nutshell for people who don't know you that well? You've got 90 seconds.
Oh God, Nadja, don't put me through this torture. Thank you, good friend. So it's so nice to see many faces here and a couple who are still in black, but I recognize your names. Welcome. Thank you so much. And just for those that are here for the first time and don't know about this work, well, I've been researching the relationship to money for nigh on 40 years, about what money does with us and what we do with money. And for those that would like to change their relationship to money, we have a little system, which Nadja is a wonderful exemplar of and translated online, called CU Money. And then from 2009, this is like the money work is like the inner work to help you manifest and get in touch with your source internally. And then from 2009, I developed a further body of work, which I call source work, which helps people who want to realize their projects from their source to start up and continue organizing themselves and other people so that they manifest their work as best possible and as simply as possible. So that's a brief introduction. And old, yes, wise, you can judge. Thank you, Nadja.
Good, but I'm so impressed, Peter, with the brevity of this introduction. Very well done. Because for all of you, I just recently did an interview with Peter that I posted to everybody who's attending this call. And and I always try to keep these interviews very brief, sort of 20 minutes with 3 to 6 questions. Because I need to edit them afterwards. And then I ended up in his 45-minute space with Peter. It's like the biggest editing job in the last half year. But so I really appreciate that wonderful intro to your body of work, Peter. Okay, so the first thing that we will do, and I hope nobody's going to have a panic attack, is we will send you into a 5-minute breakout group. The reason being, with 1 or 2 other people, that we want you to get a bit centered in why are you here and what are some of the questions that are alive in you. Yeah, because obviously if this is a Q&A with Peter, we need to have people who are asking questions, and it's always a bit weird in the beginning to even dare to raise your hand in this space. And therefore, this is your warm-up session with 1 other person or 2 other people. And Mark, our wonderful technical wizard in the background, will make that all happen. Okay, so Mark, I'm wondering I'm just realizing that maybe you want to do triads, because we will have some people who have to step out because they have to take their dogs out or they are in Disneyland, like...
Give me 1 second, please. And
so that way, I think that might be a more creative space, because then if you're stepping out, you still have 1 other person you can connect to, hopefully. So I hope that should all work out. And we'll do 5 minutes. And then, yeah, you'll see what comes up for you in... There's so many people in Disneyland. What is happening in Disneyland? I'm fascinated. I got, I think, 3 messages this week of people who are currently in Disneyland. This is very puzzling to me, but okay. Mark, are we ready to go? Hey, okay. See you on the other side in a few minutes.
Felix.
Hi, Felix.
Hallo, schön euch zu sehen.
Ebenso. Wonderful. Okay, so, as people are slowly dribbling back, just tune in with yourself. Maybe even take a deep breath for a moment, right? Wherever, because for some of us, it might have been a bit hectic to show up here on time. So just for a minute, expand, breathe. See all these lovely people on the screen. Exactly. Christine's stretching. It's a good impulse. Oh, okay. And we are getting ready to engage with Peter Koenig himself. So, Mark, do you want to tell people about the reaction button that they can use now?
Yeah, if you look on the bottom of your screen, you have a button that should say reactions, or if you're in a German Zoom, Reaktion, I think. If you click on that, you see a little raise hand button. So if you click that, we will see you in the participants list and call upon you.
Yeah, so that is the electronic way of raising your hand. And the nice thing is it gives us an order of events. So whoever clicks that button first is the person who is first in line. So what is coming up in terms of questions around money, source, love and business? I don't know, how to bake sourdough bread. I don't know if Peter has any answers to that. But so questions, people. Otherwise, I also have some in the can. Oh, we have Christine. Wonderful. Christine, fire away.
Hi, Christine.
Hello. I'm spotlight. Okay. It's wonderful to see everyone's faces, and there's people I see for the first time on these. It's just that, Nadja, thank you so much for putting these together. So I'm Christine Robertson, and I have Peter's blessing to bring his body of work to English speaking North America, which feels really daunting when I put it that way. But I'm actually in the middle of offering my first intensive workshop. I've kind of redesigned everything I've done, and I've come up with this. It's either a weekend or a 3-day workshop. And I'm this afternoon is the third of 3 days. And my question is, there was a person that Peter actually worked with. There was kind of a group coaching situation, and she was there for part of the workshop yesterday. And this work doesn't really seem to resonate with her. And so what's kind of landing for me, and I wanted to hear what Peter has to say, is that this may not be for everyone. For the people may need to have done some work. And also there was this issue. She says she basically always feels, and I'm sure that means most of the time, not every second, but she always feels tightness in her chest and stomach. And so it was hard to sort of find something and track it, because she didn't really have access to the body. And so, that was kind of the range of what I was wondering.
So your question is around what to do next, or what is your question?
Well, no, my question, just sort of this bigger question of, is this work for everyone? And maybe how do you tell if it's for particular people? Just sort of that thing. Is it for one of the people in my breakout room said that she's heard you say that this is more for people who've already done quite a bit of work on themselves.
Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, what were you offering? Is this a money workshop, or is it around love?
Oh, I'm sorry. This workshop, it's my strategy has been to start with reclamations, and doing reclamations with people. And of course, money does come up. It's not focused on money. I'm still learning the money and source work, and most importantly, it's still landing in me. And so and my plan is also, I would like to have practitioners who can do reclamations, who can be part of the money work and source work, et cetera, once I'm offering that. So it's focused on reclamations. There's different ways of looking at it where I get things that people can work on, and we, you know, and we work, but it does have some structure to it. It's not just reclamations, but that's the heart of it.
Christine, I'm trying to tune in. What did you offer her? What was she offered?
We were doing reclamations.
So does she understand what that means?
What do you mean?
Well, does she understand when you offer her to do reclamation? Does she know what that involves? Does she have an idea?
Well, this was the person that you worked with Bill and Amy.
Yeah.
So yes, so
oh yes, of course.
She'd also had one private session with me where we did reclamations, but
okay.
It's just like I said, it just doesn't seem to land as much.
Yeah.
And
so to answer the sort of half, or maybe your question or half unspoken question, first of all, we don't force anything. So I wouldn't generally say this is, you know, just for some people or other people. What I say about the money work is that usually people don't come to a money seminar until they've done a lot of inner work themselves on other subjects. And related to money, this tends to be the last subject that they come to. People who've been doing so-called spiritual work and dealing with all sorts of different subjects, for most people, the relationship to money doesn't occur to them until fairly late in the process of self-development. So that's what I was referring to. Now, in terms of whether a reclamation process works or not, if it doesn't, you know, I think potentially it could work for everybody. But it's a question of what one is able to access at any particular point in time. So it's always experimental. And as an experiment, it's always capable of failure. And that needs to be accepted from the start. So we don't force anything. We accept the possibility of failure. And if it fails, we allow it to fail. Now, my experience is very often when we get to the point of failure and the person, the client, you could say, recognizes that, you know, that you or I can't go any further or don't know how to go any further, very often they're willing to share something even deeper than they've shared up to that point. And that can be the clue, which is actually what's necessary to continue the work. So, but if they're not, then we don't push it and we don't force it. We just allow it to fail. And it's not ready, you know, maybe what they're really looking for is not ready to be touched. And we don't try and force that because it wouldn't help to try and force that.
Yeah, well, and that's what, when I said, you know, if you're welcome to come tomorrow if you want to. And she said, no, I don't think I will, but and it's interesting because even though I'm not doing the money work or marketing around money, the people who are showing up have been mostly coaches and people who are working with people and people who've done a lot of work. So it's and I think, and I very much feel I'm not making people show up. You know, the work itself, there's an impulse that people feel. Yeah. And so it's about, of course, as being based in the US, it's like I'm rejiggering all the marketing because the marketing for coaching here is just really toxic. And so I'm trying to figure out how can I actually present this to people in a way that's not, you know, saying people are broken and need to be fixed.
Yeah. So the one other thing I would say is that when you come to do this work and it's relatively fresh, it's very good to do what you're doing, Christine, and just get yourself into it and experience successes and experience failures, because you need to go into that more and more and more to develop, to fine tune, to be able to pick out more precisely and more precisely and more precisely what you're actually working on. And I sometimes describe this, and I'm delighted that Joop is with us today, because he's just done some wonderful videos where I actually share. It's a bit like wine tasting. In one of his videos, he picked this out. So, you know, what I say there is that everybody can taste wine, but to become an expert wine taster, you need to take time and develop and develop and develop, and then you start to pick out the finer flavors, the finer nuances. And my experience with all the practitioners of this work is that that's how it works. At the beginning, you may just hit lucky, and some people that hit lucky quickly amongst the practitioners, actually it's not always a good thing, because they sometimes become a bit sort of cocky and think, oh, now I'm brilliant and I know how to do this. And then they get a shock when it doesn't work later with somebody else. So, you know, it's very important just to continue and fine tune and fine tune and fine tune. So that's what I would say. And I think maybe Nadja, maybe you might have something to add here to this whole question, because you've got so much experience.
Yeah, no, obviously everything that you already shared, I think what is important to remember is that sometimes people are drawn to this approach. So a part of them already knows there's something for them to discover with this. That's why they probably showed up to your experience, right? But another part of them is still so guarded that there is something for them that feels so deep and so profound that they just cannot go there yet, right? And I've had this experience a few times with people who went through CU Money, that they're doing this process again now, because what they're beginning to realize at the end of the journey is that the first iteration was very cerebral, right? They were very much in their head, especially when they are a coach, where they're beginning to understand the process and approaching the topic from that perspective. But then they realize, I actually didn't go where it hurts, right? And so I would echo Peter and just say, give it some time to breathe. And the less you push, the more she might actually come around and want to explore this. And the other thought that I had is maybe explore with her just what is happening right now, right? When she's feeling she's not getting anywhere.
Right.
Work.
Well, see, I mean, that was kind of the thing. Like, she had very flat affect. She had essentially no access to feelings, to body sensations. So it was hard to get in. And you know, Peter met her, and there was you know, there was small amounts of movement, but
Yeah. Okay, then I would say what Peter said, give it space. Like, she's not.
Yeah.
Give it space.
Ready.
And just following what Nadja said, in the very moment, you see, you can catch the very moment, and you could work with her on, you know, I'm cold and I'm blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And work with her on that, because that's what's happening in the moment. And it's
well,
okay.
and I've seen you work, I'm dead. So kind of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm dead, cold, and blocked, and it's perfectly okay. I give myself permission to be that.
Yeah.
And that could be the starting point.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Christine, for the question. Since I don't see any hands up right now, I'm going to ask you a question, Peter, that came up for me. So I'm noticing that, you know, when I watch the news right now and I see what is happening globally with money, and, you know, we endlessly heard these stories about the gap between the rich and the poor getting ever bigger and bigger. And what is coming up for me is this question of, why do people hoard money? Like, what is this, that people who already have so much money seem to only pursue the interest of making that pile even bigger? And then secondly, I've heard you say a number of times, money actually needs to flow. Why is that? And what do you mean by that? If you could speak to those two, that would be great.
So the hoarding, you know, I think you're asking a question which you certainly know the answer to already, but it's like, you know, people have this positive projection, positive attributes that they're projecting onto money, so that if they don't have enough, they don't feel they have enough. Until they do that reclamation, they will never feel they have enough, no matter how much, what the quantity is. and no matter how much they have, they're still fearing to lose it all. So they feel they need more in order not to lose what they've got. So, you know, I read the other day that I was sent a notice the other day that Steve Zuckerberg, actually his wealth has diminished by half in the last period. And that means 71 billion. He's lost 71 billion. I mean, it's unthinkable for most of us to even think of how much is 71 billion or 140 billion. But I wonder how he's feeling having lost half of it now. You know, he may feel, I mean, I don't know if he's feeling poor, but
on the edge of bankruptcy, probably.
Exactly. So the question of money flowing, that's a very good question. It's something around, I mean, the metaphors are all there around that people have been using a long time around money, which is certainly related to flow, like water and like blood. And if those things stop flowing, then you have drought or you have death, I mean, in a system. So related to those metaphors, certainly it makes complete sense. But your question leads me to think it's not just about any kind of flow. It's a flow, it's about ultimately the flow of resources to where they are needed at any particular moment. And money being a factor to help those resources flow to where they are needed. And, you know, related to the system of money, we have a system which has been extracting capital from the earth, which has never appeared in any bookkeeping system. It's never been counted. So that the flow has been in one direction from the earth to our economy. And this didn't matter for 300 years because the amounts were small in relationship to the whole. But what has happened is that the flows of, you know, with our technologies, the flows of resources from the earth into our economic system being transformed into material products has been mammothly increasing. And that has been almost mirrored by the whole money system and helped by the whole money system. And that's where there has been no flow back or not sufficient flow back into the earth, actually, in terms of capitalizing or recapitalizing the earth. And this is where we have lacked consciousness in what we're doing and what has been, in a sense, where we have been creating problems without even realizing it. So that's a bit of an expanded answer to your question, or the best I can do, I think, to answer that.
No, thank you. That helps. And actually, it kind of brings me back to the other question about the piling of money, right? So you said to undo the piling, we actually need to do that inner work on the reclamations that we have to do in order to let go of, I need to have more and more and more to be secure and free, which in another way, in my language, I would also say what that does, it actually reduces the fear that if and when I need a resource, for example, money, it will not flow to me, right? So only if I've done the inner work can I trust that when I need something, it will also come my way.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a complete transformation. And it's a transformation mirroring the transformation from fear, on which the present system is based till now, to a sense of there's always going to be enough for me and for whatever is needed, which actually, you know, I sometimes say everybody has had that experience and has that experience continually. But there's, along with that, having that experience continually, we've been entrained and conditioned to believe that this will not continue today or tomorrow or next week, and therefore we must be active to secure ourselves that it will continue. And it continues whether we're active with it or not, actually, and that's really deeply lodged in our experience, but we don't sufficiently trust that experience.
Yeah. And what do you mean by that? I think just to clarify for those who haven't heard you speak quite so much about this, is the fact that we are all sitting here means we've been taken care of.
Yeah.
And that may have been connected with more or less individual struggle from our perspective, but we're still here either way. And maybe we would still be here even without the struggle.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter. So we have a question by Joanne.
Hi there. I don't know that I've really formulated my question, but I'm so happy to hear you talk about consciousness. So I'm in the UK, and my question, I don't know, my question to, I'm always really nervous on these things, forgive me. You know, we've just had the burial of the Queen, and I'm not particularly a royalist at all, but I did watch, you know, it's part of my life. I did watch the funeral along with several billion other people. And it is a show of, or it was a show, it was like for me, it was a reaffirmation of the state really affirming itself. It had, the Christian church had a fabulous marketing opportunity. The monarchy had a fabulous marketing opportunity. It's almost like the state was really reaffirming itself in terms of where the power structures are. And these structures have been ongoing for hundreds of years. And the other side of that is I perceive money as a completely consciousness question, insofar that it's a fabrication. It doesn't exist. It's a fabrication of mind. It's a collective dream. It's a collective, like it's held in place collectively. But it's like the structures that hold that in, you know, like the question is around consciousness, and the structures that are held in place are so unconscious, are they? The structures don't even exist in a human form, but they've been put in place to hold the paradigm for such a long time. And it's very, you know, I can sit and meditate and become the pure being of light, and that's lovely. You know, and I'm happy to travel that way indefinitely. But it's like the issue of the here and now, like in this really quite short piece of time, Britain's in a right old hoo-ha right now with the IMF and the government. I mean, you know, talk about collapse on your doorstep. But I have a real question around, you know, like that you've got that kind of really esoteric higher level thing, and then you've got the nuts and bolts of whether I can buy a tin of beans tonight to feed my children or pay my rent, or, you know, like these things are so far apart. How do I you know, I want to work with this, you know, I work with business owners who are trying to be, have livelihood businesses. But it's, you know, like there are structures around them that make that very hard, right? I mean, and my other question is like, yes, we're all here now, so we're okay. But what about the people that aren't here and are not okay?
Right. I'd like to leave this second question apart for the moment. Not that I don't want to answer it, but it is a separate question about the other people who are not here. And I don't know if this will be an answer because you haven't really placed a question. But let me just give you my perspective, particularly on the monarchy. And I was just playing in my mind with the words, the monarchy and the money key, which are pretty close together in sound, at least. And they are separate, but maybe not so separate. So I just want to give you my take on the Queen's funeral and the 11 days, or however long it was. For me, this was from a source perspective, a perspective of my source principles. It was a magnificent manifestation. So you have the monarch who's the source of the nation here. And what we saw evidence of in 11 days was the most incredible manifestation of organizing and organization through a field of people seeming to know what to do to organize themselves. I mean, at a level of scale which would be impossible to rehearse and choreograph, and carried out with absolute meticulousness down to the final detail. And for me, this was the most wonderful example of what I call source principles on a scale of this level. Extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Now, what we also say in source, one of the principles is that if the source has a pathology, then this gets manifested through the system as well. And I would like to look and see what's happening in the UK at the moment in terms of politics, economics, and et cetera, and maybe the money system in the UK, but it's not just the UK. The financial system is part of this, but it is, from a source perspective, this would be the shadow of the consciousness of the source. Do you understand what I'm talking about? So the source, when the source has a pathology, there's something which needs reclamation in their identity to help do some correction. So this would be the Queen's pathology, in fact, which she inherited from her ancestors and has now passed on to King Charles. And the question will be, for me, whether the King will do some personal development work which will actually evolve and improve the situation or not. So in other words, if we're looking at the nation as a whole, which is where you introduce the subject, nobody can really do anything unless Charles does something here.
Okay.
So, you know, this is the big question mark. Will he? It's not about, for me, it's not just about continuing the monarch's tradition. It's not just about continuing the tradition. It's about evolution with consciousness. This is where consciousness comes in. Will he be conscious enough to evolve something which will actually manifest itself in an evolution which will translate into the geopolitical and the financial and economic situation in the country. And, you know, you see the potential there. I think the 11 days showed the incredible potential which is available, and the different way of organizing than through the present political and economic and other institutions that we have in the UK. So we're just looking at the UK at the moment because this is where you are and this is what you raised. But I think this is a perspective that I wanted to share on the basis of your question, if that's helpful.
So the monarchy is more than one individual, although in this case, it comes down to one individual, right?
Yes, the source is always one individual.
Right, but in terms of the greater money structures that hold the world in its elitist status quo, is that, from my perspective, that's quite faceless.
So you would, you know, this is one of the questions we always have when looking at source work. Who is actually, you know, we're saying with source there's one person who has inherited. Now, you may go to find out if there is, you would need to look back 350 years to the source of the present financial system, which is actually in the UK as well.
Mm-hmm.
And probably through the Bank of England, and it could be interesting to look at and see, you know, who is the present source there, and you know, you may get another perspective on things if you're able to find out and see what role they may be playing right now. I haven't done this myself, but maybe you'd like to look at that because it can be very helpful to give a sort of explanation, and to give just you know, like a little aside on this related to the financial and the money system. The money system was created, the financial system was created in the present one was in the 17th century by in the UK, and I'm forgetting the name. Oh yes, Samuel Hartlib. If you'd like to look up Samuel Hartlib, you will find that Samuel Hartlib in the 17th century had a collection of geniuses around him, and they tried to create a new financial system, first of all, with alchemy, because this was the time of the Enlightenment. Science was evolving, and they didn't have enough gold to impel the new system of money. They needed more gold. So they tried for about 30 years with alchemy.
How interesting. I've been looking at Descartes was around at that time when.
Of course, it's in that whole time period. So the story goes that they tried with alchemy, and finally alchemy didn't work. And then they came to the idea of paper. And of course, you know, who would believe in paper compared to gold? So if you look at the history, and I encourage you to do this, you will find that the first bankers at that time were Barclays and Lloyds and so forth, and they were all Quakers, highly spiritual people.
Okay.
Why? Because you needed to have people who were really trusted to say, this paper, I promise you 1 pound of gold. You needed to have trusted people to make that promise and have it be believable. And that's how the system started. Now, the system is nowadays highly criticized for creating rich and poor, for extraction and so forth. But if you look at what it did in these 300 years, there has been incredible evolution and advance. The fact that we're even talking today over Zoom is a result of all of our ancestors and their relationship to money, even though it was a fear-based system and an extractive system. It created all the things that we are, you know, particularly the material products that we today take for granted. And if that fact is ignored, and sadly, it's largely ignored by people who criticize the system, it is the gratitude we need to offer for this system to this point is the key to be able to evolve into the new systems that we need to evolve in right now. So this is why consciousness is so important, because we need to be conscious of this whole part of the conscious and grateful for the part our ancestors have played up to now, even if with their limitations, with the limitations we're seeing, so that we can continue on and develop what we need to develop for the future and for future generations. And so that's the larger picture that I hope I can contribute to painting a bit to answer the question that you didn't pose.
So at some point, money was sacred. I remember watching something about the dollar, which has also got a multitude of symbolism, and you know, like the original intention was of a higher intention, a higher and a good intention. So there's something around the sacredness of money that perhaps has been lost. That higher consciousness.
So it's really, if you look at how we're treating money, the relationship to money in our particular ecosystem, we're talking about our own sacredness. Yes. When we are transacting with money. So we're not saying that money is sacred. We're saying, we are. Joanne, you are sacred. Now, when you transact with another person who is also sacred, we would like you to honor the sacredness of both of you when you move the money. That's the flow that we were talking about earlier. That's what the flow is about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That gives me something to play with.
And Peter, do you maybe also want to go to the second part of Joanne's question, the uncomfortable, well, what about all the people that are not here and that are potentially not okay?
So this is usually a highly controversial thing in terms of the answer that I tend to give. And that is that we tend to project ideas on so-called poor people. Who are not here because I'm putting myself in a privileged position and saying they're poor. And I encourage all of us to look at that, look at what we're doing when we do that. Because we're tending to say, well, you can't be happy because you haven't got so much money and you're suffering, and I will help you with your suffering. And this is why it gets controversial. I'm not trying to deny there is suffering, and we need to listen to all the suffering, but we don't necessarily help the suffering by this particular attitude. So that's why it's so sensitive and so controversial, because it can be, you know, a means of actually, in a sense, disconnecting ourselves at that point. And rather than using the resources that we have at our disposal to manifest what it is ours to manifest in the world, we may be sending resources to the so-called poor, which don't really help them and don't really help us either. So my request, if you like, is to look at that whole dynamic very, very carefully and very, very sensitively before acting too quickly on it. Does that make sense?
And thank you, Joanne, for these questions.
Thank you.
So looking at the clock, I would say we probably have
Wow.
time for one more. And Vera is the next in line. So Vera, you're up.
Thank you. My
Hi.
question, hi, Peter. My question actually builds upon the one from Christine and also partially upon the one from Joanne. And something that I've been reading just today, again, a little bit more about, which is this new acronym BANI that followed the VUCA acronym. Maybe you've heard about it. Like the follow-up of VUCA is BANI, standing for brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. And it in a way brings, VUCA was kind of a beautiful description, but rather abstract. And it brings it now, in my perception, this new acronym brings it down to a felt level, you know, a level which we can see, brittle old systems. So systems that are somehow breaking apart, whether it's with the pandemic or whether it's now with other things also in the money world. The feeling of anxiety that was also noted by Christine and Joanne to some extent. And then nonlinear, so things that kind of are not following really a rational linear process anymore, at least not that we can comprehend it, and therefore also incomprehensible in a way. You know, it's just too much to grasp with our mind. And my question specifically is connected to this anxiety part within this acronym. And there, more specifically on that level, okay, we have kind of individual anxiety perceived, you know, also by that person that Christine was mentioning. And there's kind of a collective anxiety. And my question to you is, in a way, is there a way for working with, in the reclamation process, or in also another way that might come to your mind, to help the person that you're working with, and maybe also you as the one who's working with that person, to understand, is that now really individually, or can we make actually the distinction between individual angst, anxiety, and collective one, and therefore kind of make it in a way more tangible, more comprehensible again? Is my question clear?
I think so. Thank you, Vera. I see there's a trend, and quite a big trend towards collective processes. And I wouldn't say that I have a good answer or know the truth on this, but I'm very suspicious of it. Because I have a feeling it's a way, amongst other things, of avoiding my having to do anything. Oh, well, you know, it's collective. It's like, oh, this has nothing to do with me, or I'm not, it's nothing to do, it wasn't my fault. This is something I inherited from somewhere out there, which I can call collective. And therefore we need to deal with the collective first, and then I'll get, you know, I'll get the profit, I get the benefit of once we've all managed this collective process. And I'm very suspicious of that. So, so that's why I'm uneasy with it. And from a source perspective, I would say that, you know, like I said with the monarchy, it's like the individual, it starts with the source. And actually the collective will be impacted systemically from the source, or attract people with the same, let's call it pathologies, into their field. So it is actually, the collectiveness is a mirror. But as I was suggesting earlier, it doesn't help if you're in somebody else's field with the same issue that a source has in the field, or if you're in an organization, attracted to an organization because you have the same issue as the founder. It requires the founder to take the step individually to actually move. And if you move before the founder does, you will want to leave the field if the founder is not willing to take the step themselves because you've moved beyond them. So it always starts with the source. And, you know, we haven't had, because it hasn't been right. But we can look at, in terms of a company, for example, it's very probable that let's say the drive, the unconscious drive of the founder is going to manifest itself in the closest team to the founder and will drive the whole company. So that the projection is likely to be a collective projection at some level. But I haven't had sufficient opportunities yet to test this out. I think it will be for your generation, Vera, to be working as it moves into your generation, this whole body of work, you will be able to see that and test it out. That you know, the founder has security issues and needs to, you know, have certain amount of savings of capital in the company to secure themselves, and then is attracting financial consultants and financial people who are totally focused on security as well. And then you see the whole team is focused on security, and the whole drive in the company is being driven on security. And I think, you know, if we really want to analyze it and look at it, we will find many such instances. And then what, if we're working with the whole team, we can maybe get a whole team to do a reclamation at the same time. And this would change the course of the company, change the whole atmosphere in the company, the whole drive in the company. But actually, it's really the founder that needs to be there and do that, and then the others will follow. So that's my answer. It's a bit of a long answer, I'm afraid, but it's the best I can do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vera, for that question. And thank you, Peter, for that response. And actually, it's 7 p.m. We spot landing. I don't know what's happening today. This is amazing. So I'm sure there are more questions, but the wonderful thing is we have more of these Ask Me Anythings, right? So the next one is coming up in 6 weeks. I'm just seeing Joanne's question. Is there a link to previous Ask Me Anything videos? Here's what I will do. For everybody who is registered for this call today, there will be an email by tomorrow that has the link to today's recording, and I will include the links to the previous 2 recordings, as well as all the links that were posted in the chat around BANI and Joop's wonderful interviews with Peter. So you'll get all of that in an email. That way we have everything that we need. Peter, any closing comments for today?
Well, just to say, for me personally, the time has just flown. Thank you, everybody, for staying on and listening. My answers were, I think, longer than any of the answers I've ever given before. So it needed maybe a lot of listening to. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all. And actually, Mark, if you could pin Peter and myself so that we can see everybody in tiles. I always love this part of our process. Because, you know, one of the things that I find most joyful about this work is noticing that I'm not alone, right? That we're all in this together. And the more of us go through this process and do this kind of work, the less alone I feel. And I think, you know, ultimately that's the only thing we can do. It's sort of one step at a time and hope that it will come with enough force and with enough love and with enough power to actually make a difference. So unmute yourselves if you would. And then we do our little ConsciousU ritual, which is to connect in disembodied Zoom. And so find somebody in the tile next to you that you can reach out to. So I'm touching Peter and Renee right now. But I can also massage Clarissa's head. So You guys, thank you so much for showing up today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Peter.
Cheers.
Ciao. Bye.